Okay, I am specking my skirt. So I have laid my skirt out here. I also printed my spec sheet. I'm gonna have it here off to the side. And the first thing I want to do, I've got this sort of pleather skirt. It does have a center front seam, a waistband, belt loops, darts. The back has 2 pockets, again, waistband, belt loops, center back seam, and a slit. So one of the things that I want to do is get it laid out as flat as possible. Of course, this skirt has darts and hips, so there's dimension to it. I'm gonna get it as flat as I can for now. So this is the front, and if I let it just sort of naturally relax, my front waistband is slightly above my back. So the first measurement says waistline seam placement above or below natural waist. This is a fitted pencil skirt that fits on the waist, but it is slightly above. Let's see, there, if we lay it, actually no, it's not above. Okay, so it's all laid out. It's at the waist, so that first thing is gonna be 0. I already have that in there. Okay, waist seam circumference, front and back. So because it wants a measurement on the front and a measurement on the back, I'm gonna take them separately. I'm going to roll this so that I can see where that side seam starts. I'm gonna hold my tape measure at the end, walk my tape measure across the front of the waistband until I hit the side seam of the waistband, which is right here. I'm at 16 inches, so my front is 16. I'm gonna do the same to the back. I'll start at the side seam, hold the tape measure at that seam, walk it across the back of the skirt to that side seam. It looks like I'm at 17 3/4. Now, when I plug in these front and back measurements into Excel, it will give me the total. Extended doesn't apply to this skirt because I don't have elastic. And I did make a separate video to talk about different notations on different styles of skirts. Okay, I'm gonna flip this back to the front, and I'm going to take my waistband height. So that will be from the top of the waistband to the bottom of the seam, and that is coming out to 1 7/8. High hip is 4 inches from natural waist. Because this sits at the natural waist, what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna turn the skirt this way, and I want to get it to lay as flat as I can. I'm gonna measure down 4 inches. I'm gonna be right here. So technically 4 inches or 2 inches, 4 inches. Okay, I'm here. I'm going straight across, okay? Sometimes I do this, I take the tail end of the tape measure and I just measure again down 4 inches. So I actually want to be up here with this, so I'm here and here. Okay, we could use pins or pieces of tape to mark the location 4 inches down. I'll go get some pins and show you how to do that. So I am as flat as I can be. This tape measures on the very edge of that fold. I'm not measuring side seam to side seam because the fronts and backs are different widths. I'm measuring from fold to fold, and I'm exactly 19 inches. All right, let me grab some pins and show you how to mark the hips real quick. Pins or tape. Okay, so this is a pleather skirt. I maybe don't necessarily want to be putting a pin in it. So I'm gonna use tape on this. Low hip is 7 inches down, so I'm gonna measure 7 inches down and kind of mark it. I'm gonna measure 7 inches down my side seam and mark that. okay? If I had pins, I could mark it, like I could shove this pin in the side seam, you know, so it's sticking out like that. That's another way to mark your 7 inches down. Now again, at that point, I'm gonna I'm not pulling to stretch it, I'm pulling to make this as flat as possible and somewhat relax it. And let me just double check my 7 inches. So I'm at the top, and now that that's flat and relaxed, I'm gonna go from the fold all the way across to the other fold, and I am at 21 1/8. Okay. So again, I am pulling at that area that I want to measure. You can see my side seam is rolled behind my skirt, and that's okay. I'm measuring from fold to fold, making sure this is flat as possible. I'm not stretching it out. It's flat, it's relaxed, okay? All right, now we are on to center front, center back length. Okay, if I want, I can kind of fold it at the front. I'm gonna measure straight from the center front waist down to the hem. It says 27.5. Otherwise, again, just smoothing it out as much as possible. It's got a curve to it, so this one's tricky to measure. Or I can measure down like that, okay? So I got 27.5. Center back, I'll do the same. Center back of the waistband down to the hem, I'm at 26.5. So my back is actually an inch shorter than my front, which is actually unusual, but that's okay. All right, side seam. So if you notice, I'm kind of folding up, rolling up the skirt, and I'm only, am I off camera? Oh my gosh, am I off camera? I'm only focusing on the areas that I want to measure. So let's see, center front, side seam. So in this instance, I am kind of following the seam a little bit, and I'm at 27. Okay, it says sweep. The sweep is the hem. I'm gonna lay this on the front so that I can see that slit, and I'm going to close the slit. Okay, if you're working with something that just doesn't want to stay shut or stay flat, you could put pins in it. Mine's staying pretty flat, I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm going to measure from the fold to the fold, I'm at 21. So the sweep is the hem. The next thing I have, it says slit, length and depth. So I actually, sometimes these fold over one another. Again, I made another video that shows different examples of different notations. This is just a slit. I don't have a depth. I'm gonna measure the length from where it starts to where it ends is 7 3/4. For depth, I'll say not applicable, NA. Darts, I do have darts on the front of this. So it's asking for dart placement, length, and depth. Because these darts are sewn together, there's not going to be a depth. If this was open or a pleat, okay, I'm going to measure down from the start of the dart to the stitch. It's 4 1/2. The placement from center front, I'm measuring from the dart over to center front is 4 inches. And you'll also notice I'm only doing one side because the sides should be symmetrical. Pocket A and pocket B. So if this had front pockets and back pockets, I would utilize, you know, front pockets would be pocket A, back would be pocket B. I only have one set of pockets on this skirt, so I only have to worry about one set of measurements. So it says placement, waistline seam to top of pocket edge. So our waistline seam is here to top of pocket edge is 1 inch. Oh, waistline seam, center front to pocket edge. Side seam to pocket edge, center back to pocket edge. So I'm actually gonna do a couple measurements because this measurement is 1 inch, but over here it's 1.25 inches. So I'm gonna say waistline seam to top pocket edge at center back is 1 inch. And I'm going to put in the comments at side seam or at SS is 1 1/4 inch. And when I go back to Excel to transfer all this, I'll add another line. Placement center front to pocket edge. So that wants to know from the center front over to the pocket edge, what is this placement? This is going to be 2 inches. Placement side seam to pocket edge. Oh, it wants top and bottom. Okay, so top was 2 inches, bottom is 2 1/8. So I can put that in the notes at bottom, 2 1/8. Side seam to pocket edge. I'm gonna roll my skirt a little bit so I can see that side seam. So even though this is all bunchy, this is what I'm measuring. This is the only area that needs to stay flat. So to side seam from top is 1 1/4. At the bottom is 1 1/2. So I will write 1 1/4 at bottom, 1 1/2. Placement center back to pocket edge, top and bottom. I don't need that one. So I can cross that out. Pocket width. So the width of my pocket, let's do it this way so you can see, is, if I do it from the edge, 6 3/8. Just kind of double checking. And the length is going to be 7 1/4. So width is 6 3/8. Length is 7 1/4. Okay, the next one is pleats. I don't have any pleats. I already did my slit. Zipper placket. I don't have a placket, but I do have a zipper. It's an invisible zipper. So it's asking for the length. I'm opening my zipper because it's an invisible one so I can see where it actually ends. And the length is 9 3/4. Belt loop placement. Okay, belt loop placement. So distance from center front, I'm only measuring 1, and I'm measuring it along the top of the waistband, and we're gonna make note of that in the comments. So from the top of the belt loop to center front is 5 3/8. 5 3/8 at top of waistband. Distance from center back. Along the top of the waistband is 6 1/4. And then I'm not going to worry about the side seam because my placements were from center front and center back. My width. So because I have this metal edge on my tape measure, sometimes I actually remove it. But as you can see, I can't see any measurements under it. So I'll actually start my tape measure at 1. And it looks like this width is 3/8. And the length is 2 3/8. So 3/8 and 2 3/8. Hem depth. This skirt doesn't happen to have, it's a raw edge, it's just cut because it's pleather. But if it was folded back and stitched down, I would measure that fold back. I'd say it was 1 inch, but it's a raw edge, this particular style. And then button placement. I don't have any buttons on this skirt, so that's not applicable as well. All right, I'm gonna take my handwritten measurements to the computer and type it all into Excel.